So, troops, it looks like Russia is retreating from Kherson. There's a few bits of information came out over the past 24 hours. Mainly, the Russian Ministry of Defense has stated that Russian forces on the west bank of the Dnipro River begin to withdraw their troops from that area. So, this video today is going to be about that. We're going to get through an Institute of Study of War article, which is pertinent. It's got a lot of information in. Stick around to the end when we're going to show you some footage of the one of the top Russian generals actually talking about the retreat, guys, and it's we'll see what he has to say. But before we get into it, like, share, and subscribe to the video. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate all the support, troops. Let's get into this. So, let me zoom in a little bit for you guys so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay. So, the Russian Ministry of Defense ordered Russian forces on the west bank of the Dnipro River to begin withdrawing to the east. And that was yesterday. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu ordered the withdrawal of Russian troops across the Dnipro River during a highly staged televised meeting with commander of the Russian Armed Forces in Ukraine Army, General Sergei Surovikin, on November 9th. During the televised meeting, Surovikin recommended that the withdrawal of the withdrawal, and Shoigu accepted his decision. So this was, it was a staged meeting, obviously, staged televised thing where one person said, yeah, we're going to be withdrawing our weapons, and one person's accepted that decision, all right? Let's take a look at the map in question where they're talking about. So in terms of Kherson itself, that there is the region. We can see it's been updated slightly. If we go back a few days, there was nothing on this map in terms of movements and stuff due to the media blackout and stuff. That's to be understood, though. Now, fast forward a few days, we can see that Ukraine has effectively pushed on through a little bit. According to this map anyway, they seem to be pushing in this direction. And it's apparent now with Russia actually explaining on TV that although it was a televised, staged thing, that they're trying to push across to this side of the Dnipro River. It makes obvious sense, really, when you think about the grand scheme of fighting within Kherson Oblast, that area. You want to be over that main feature before the occupying forces, before the friendly guys, Ukrainians, can push on through. You don't want to be in a position where, you've effectively stayed put and gradually got pushed back anywhere, and you're, right near that main water feature with nowhere to go. Obviously, Ukraine ain't going to stop with their advances, so you can imagine they're going to push on through, and then you're going to have a horrendous situation where everyone's just basically fighting on these front lines there. A front line where a main water feature is. It's just going to be a slaughter, isn't it, of whoever's there, really, and Ukraine's going to have that tactical advantage going through. So it's good news in the sense that Ukraine is pushing Russia further back. Bad news for Russia in terms of they have to obviously, liberate Kherson Oblast. But there's information also coming out to state that Ukraine shouldn't be celebrating just yet. We're going to get into why in a few moments, guys. But anyway, they've, effectively got all their kit and equipment to the east side. Shoigu and Surovikin's statements mark the beginning of a steady fighting withdrawal by Russian troops. That's the key thing to remember in this, guys, is it's a fighting withdrawal by Russia. So Ukraine can't get too complacent with their actions. Yes, it's a good thing they're pushing them back, but Russia's fighting, all right? They're not just withdrawn like they did in the east and Luhansk areas in the first counteroffensive, because Russia just effectively dropped their kit in their situ and got the hell out of there quick time, all right? Russian troops across the Dnipro River to prepared positions on the east bank to prevent the combat power of Russian units, including elements of the 76th and 106 Airborne Assault Divisions and the 22nd Army Corps. Surovikin notably stated that half of the troops withdrawn from the west bank of the Dnipro will be redeployed to other areas of Ukraine. We believe that they'll probably be deploying to other parts of Ukraine. But if you think about where they're going to go from here, it's going to be it's a few days, few weeks off for those guys anyway if they get out of this area imminently. There is a massive front that they could be pushed on through to. You know, you've got Mariupol as well, which is a massive strategic point where I would like to see a little bit more traction. But, you know, I think Kherson, we need to take that first, push on eastward, and we need to see a little bit more movement as well in this original counteroffensive, because according to this map, it's at a bit of a stalemate up there now. We're not seeing too much on that front, okay, guys, which is... it might have something to do with the media blackout, granted, but yeah, we hopefully going to see a little bit more traction going forward. But anyways, the entire Russian contingent will take some time to withdraw troops across the Dnipro River, and it's still unclear if Russian forces will be able to conduct the withdrawal in relatively good order under Ukrainian pressure. That's a good point, actually, to think about. They're not just having a fight and withdraw. They've got the Ukrainians pursuing them the entire way. And what's stopping them, you know, throwing in a couple of HIMARS to be able to block their routes out? Effectively, you know, not letting them leave without a fight. It's this is war, guys. Don't just be thinking that, well, these Russian troops can have a steady retreat out of that situation. It's going to be dangerous for them no matter what. So is Ukraine going to push on the pressure so these guys don't live to fight another day? That's a possible thing. I mean, if you think about how hard it was to fight in Kherson anyway, these guys were struggling. You know, a lot of guys lost their lives. A lot of the Ukrainians, once they get momentum, will want to continue that momentum, and they want to continue it with fierce force as well. So the fight is not over yet until there's a full... and until those boundaries are fully clear of Russian troops, okay? And the battle will continue. But the Battle of Kherson is not over. But Russian forces have entered a new phase, prioritizing withdrawing their forces across the river in good order and delaying Ukrainian forces rather than seeking to halt the Ukrainian counteroffensive entirely. Well, that tells a story on the capability of Russia. They've maybe tried to halt them before and then just got entire units of men wiped out. What they're doing is they're, you know, accepting that they have to fight whilst they're retreating this time. In terms of the East, we've seen them just retreat nonetheless, and yeah, guys lost their lives as well. So what's better for them? Well, put up a fighting chance. That's what I'm making of that, guys. All right. Now, let's get into a video. This top general guy, I wanna listen to this. It's top general announces retreat from key city of Kherson.
General in Ukraine announced an apparent retreat from Kherson.
Понимаю, что это очень непростое решение. В то же время
This is a very difficult decision. At the same time, we will save, most importantly, the lives of our troops and the overall combat effectiveness of the troops.
An admission of defeat that has been foreshadowed for several weeks. Civilians forced to evacuate east across the strategic Dnipro River. The Russian flag gone from Kherson's main administrative building. Fewer troops on city streets, Russian checkpoints in the city gone. And significantly, Tuesday night, blowing several key bridges on front lines to slow Ukraine's advance. All indicative they're readying for retreat.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that the retreat is fully underway now. They're getting the hell out of there quick time. You're not blowing bridges up if you're not wanting to hinder the advance of Ukraine, okay? But Ukraine could possibly, you know, depending on where they're situated, cause problems for Russia's retreat as well, which I think actually in the next few hours and days, we're going to see just how effective Ukrainian military can be with regards to halting that withdrawal, because if they're on the back foot, you know, they can capitalize on that. At the end of the day, do you really want these troops from Russia being able to get displaced and put into other areas of the front line, or would you rather take them out so they don't see another day of war? That's what I would like to understand a little bit more, possibly, but we didn't see that in the East offensive, that's for sure.
Ukrainian officials remain cautious. Presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak tweeting, "Actions speak louder than words. We see no signs Russia is leaving Kherson without a fight. Ukraine is liberating territories based on intelligence data, not staged TV statements."
Okay, so maybe that is, you know... If these stage televised, what's that mean? Does it mean that there's a potential threat for Ukraine to fall foul of this false pretense that Russia is retreating. In actual fact, they could be bolstering up their positions a little bit further so that so that Ukrainian troops fall into a little bit of a trap, underprepared, underwhelmed. Is that what we're seeing there? I don't know. Maybe the rest of the article explains just that. I think it does, actually. Now, let's get into this. The Ukrainian counteroffensive in Kherson direction since August, a coordinated interdiction campaign to force Russian forces to withdrawal across Dnipro without necessitating major Ukrainian ground offensives, has likely succeeded. An ISW has observed over the previous months, Ukrainian forces engaged in purposeful and well-executed campaign to target Russian concentration areas, which they have done. We've seen that. Military assets and logistic nodes throughout the oblast to make continued Russian positions on the west banks untenable without having to conduct large-scale and costly ground maneuvers to liberate territory. They've made it hard for them to stay there effectively, troops, is what I'm saying. Ukrainian troops launched consistent and constant attacks on bridges across the Dnipro River and targeted supply centres and ammunition depots on the east bank of the Dnipro that degraded the ability of the Russian forces to supply the grouping on the west bank. Ukraine forces combined these strikes with prudent and successful ground attacks on key locations such as Davdivbrid. This campaign has come to fruition. So they've effectively done what they set out to do, guys, and they've pushed Russia back according to these articles. But this is what I wanted to get into with regards to the Russian withdrawal from the West Bank. Could it have been a trap? We've just mentioned that. This article's probably is going to explain it a lot better than what I can, and hopefully it makes a little bit more sense of it. Now, the Russian withdrawal from west bank of Dnipro is unlikely to be a trap meant to lure Ukrainian troops into costly combat near Kherson city, as some Ukrainian and Western sources has suggested. Institute Study of Wars previously observed many indicators that Russian forces, military and economic assets, and occupation elements have steadily withdrawn from the West Bank across the Dnipro River, and Russian officials have been anticipating and preparing for withdrawal in a way that is incompatible with a campaign to deceive and trap Ukrainian troops. So, according to that, they're thinking, no, this can't be. We've got many indicators that are all agreement with each other to state that Russia is actually pushing back, and the campaign originally that was set out by Ukraine has been successful. It's come to fruition, it's come to light, and it's worked. So, Russian commanders have made the decision to get the hell out of there, all right? It also says in that article that Russian commanders will certainly attempt to slow Ukrainian advances to maintain an orderly withdrawal, which we have seen by way of damaging the bridges, as previously mentioned. And some forces may remain to delay Ukrainian troops in the city itself, but this fighting will be a means to an end of withdrawing as many Russian units as possible in good order. So in terms of this, it looks like Kherson could be free and liberated pretty soon, which would be good to see this area transformed into blue, and yeah, it just, we need it, guys, all right? Ukraine needs this. This would be a major gain. The fact that we have seen some of these areas turn blue so quickly, it actually tells a lot, troops, all right, about just how meaningful that information is, because this hasn't been updated for a long, long time. Anyway, let's get into the rest of this.
Complicating their assessment, the sudden death Wednesday of a senior Russian-installed official, Kirill Stremusov, in a road traffic accident, according to Russian state media. Precise details or the implication still unclear. Regardless, the retreat immediate. Some troops to stay close, fight from the east bank of the Dnipro River, others to bolster other fronts.
Кроме того,
part of the force.
This is it, General Sergei Surovkin, the commander of Russian forces in Ukraine. I believe this is the one which they were talking about being slightly televised, slightly staged on television, okay?
And means will be released, which will be used for active operations, including offensive
Don't know why he's got an American accent.
ones, in other directions in the operation zone.
Losing Kherson is a huge blow to Putin. Captured in the opening days of the war, it will be the first regional capital to be retaken by Ukraine.
Yeah, it's a massive loss for him. But in all honesty, over the past few months, would we have been shocked to think that by Christmas Kherson would have been liberated. I personally am not shocked that much, all right? It's almost inevitable that more ground will be taken over as long as support continues from the west. Okay, so I'm not actually entirely surprised by this, troops, if I'm absolutely honest with you. The question remains, are you surprised? Let me know in the comments, troops.